In this video, let's talk about how to learn the pentatonic scale on the guitar, how to really learn it. We'll break this up into 3 parts, and I'll give you some really good practice tools to help you to really learn the scale everywhere on the fretboard. So, first thing, what is the pentatonic scale? The pentatonic scale is a 5-note scale derived from the major scale. If we take C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and if we remove the 4th degree and the 7th degree, you end up with, which is C, D, E, G, A, and C. This is the pentatonic scale. It's a major scale or a minor scale with the 2 weakest notes of the scale removed. Now we also could look at this from the relative minor. So for example, if we take an A minor scale, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, and we take out still the F and the B, which from A, that is the F is the 6th degree, and the B is the 2nd degree, you end up with those same 5 notes, which is A, C, D, E, G, and A. So we as guitar players, we normally learn pentatonic scales from the standpoint of minor first, and then learn how to make them work in a major key or adapt them to a major key, which is something that's really different than other instruments. But that being said, the C, D, E, G, A, and C are the same notes as A, C, D, E, G, and A. It's the exact same scale, just using A as the root opposed to using C as the root. What you're going to want to do is learn the pentatonic scale everywhere on the fret. So what we want here is to play each scale from every note in the scale. So let's start from the root, which we're going to do A minor pentatonic to keep this simple, all natural notes. And the pattern that we all know and love is the A minor pentatonic scale starting from A, which would be 5th fret, 8th fret, and then on the 5th string is the 5th fret, 7th fret, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 8, 5, 8. Notice I'm going 1, 4, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 4. So I'm going to call this pattern 1 because it begins on the first note of the scale. Now, to help you to learn this pattern, what you could do is practice moving it around the fretboard. Transposing is the best thing you can do to help you to practice any scale of any type across the neck. So what you would do here is you would just simply start on the 5th fret. Literally just moving the same shape. Say we move it back down. This is also transposing the scale to other keys. This is B minor pentatonic. This is B flat minor pentatonic. But notice this is the same shape. Here's A minor pentatonic again. So this would be what we would call pattern 1. Now what I would call pattern 3, or the second pattern in the order, is from C. Because we're not playing the note B in the pentatonic scale, we're just skipping to C. I'm going to call it pattern 3 because it begins on the 3rd degree of the scale, A, B, C. So starting from here is the exact same notes. 8th fret, 10th fret, to the 7th fret, which is E, G on the 10th fret, A, C, D, E, G, A, C, D. You see this makes a pattern. We also can shift here. We want to do the same thing. Let's move this to other frets. Let's transpose it. Say we go back down. Takes us right back to where we started on the 8th fret. So I'm going to call this pattern 3. Now the next pattern I'm going to call pattern 4 because it starts on D, A, B, C, D. We're just not playing the B, of course. And here's what I call pattern 4. 10, 12, 10, 12, 10, 12, 9, 12, and then 10, 13, and then 10, 12. So I'm doing 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 3, 1, 4, 1, 4 with a shift, 1, 3. Now this we also can transpose and move around the fretboard. See, I'll go back down. Definitely want to practice this with a metronome. Great, we get the idea. So now going on to the next pattern, here's what I call pattern 5, which would begin on the 12th fret in the key of A minor, because we're beginning on the E here, which is A, B, C, D, E. Now remember, this is the same scale, just starting from E. So this is 1, 4, 1, 4, 1, 3, 1, 3, 2, 4, 1, 4. The frets are 12, 15, 12, 15, 12, 14, 12, 14, 13, 15, 12, 15. So this also we can move around. Maybe I'll move down the neck this time. So A minor pentatonic here. A flat minor. G minor. F sharp minor. F minor. F sharp. G. Back to A minor. And the root is sitting here on the 5th string, in this case on the 12th fret. It's going to be a really good idea as you practice each one of these patterns to figure out where the root falls in all of the patterns. That's for down the road. But now, if we move on to the last pattern, which is what I call pattern 7, which starts on G, A, B, C, D, E, and I'm sorry, A, B, C, D, E, F, and then G, which is the 7th note of the scale. But it's still A minor pentatonic, because that's G, A, C, D, E, G, A, C, D, E, G, and A. Now, because we're above the 12th fret, the 15th fret here is also equal to the 3rd fret, the same notes. And the root is on your 3rd finger, that's A right there. Say we transpose this a little bit to help us learn the pattern. Once you've gone through all 5 shapes and moved them around the fretboard and practiced them a little bit, you're going to see it's the same 5 notes, and you're starting from each note in the scale to get you to move across the fretboard. So that simple transposition of just moving it up and down the fretboard and learning what key you're in is a really good starting point. And what else is also really important is being able to play all 5 of those patterns in one key across the fretboard. So for example, because we started with A minor, that's A minor starting from G, or pattern 7, this is A minor starting from A, which is the root, and then here's A minor starting from C, which I'm calling the 3rd, what I call pattern 4, pattern 5. So this is a really important thing to be able to do, to be able to play all 5 patterns of the pentatonic scale in one key, moving across the neck. I do have a whole bunch of exercises that cover this on my site. I'll put the links down below for that. You should join and check that out. But now once you can move all 5 patterns across the fretboard like this in one key, now the next step is to practice moving them around in different keys with as many of the different patterns as possible. You don't need to know a lot of music theory to pull this off. You can use the shapes to help you to learn them, and then work in the notes and the theory as you go. So for example, if this is A, you probably want to base this all off of pattern 1. Now if we move this up 2 frets, this is B. Now here's the cool thing, is pattern 7 is always going to be what I call pattern 7, is always going to be before pattern 1. So here's pattern 1, here's what I call pattern 7. Now the theory there is, of course, that the A is the 7th note in a B minor scale, and then there's the B right here. And then, now the other cool thing is that the next pattern, what I call pattern 3, is always going to be up from pattern 1. You can see there my fourth finger stretches to that D. I don't even really have to think about the notes. I'll just know that that's where the next pattern starts, based off of the fingering. Now from there, pattern 4 would start on E, and then going to pattern 5, starts on F sharp, and then of course, what I played on the 5th fret just repeats on the 17th fret, which of course is the same as this. Pattern 7. You can move this to C. Here's the root, E, F, G, A, B, C. Pattern 1. Pattern 3. And I'm just starting that from where my 4th finger ended on pattern 1. Pattern 4. Pattern 5. And then pattern 7, which would be on the 18th fret, which is also the same as the 6th fret. And then of course, what's on the 15th fret is also the same as the 3rd fret. So this very quickly just keeps looping around. That's really the key. This is the secret to really learning your pentatonics. It's being able to move those shapes around the fretboard and use that as a stepping stone to learn the notes and eventually be able to really know what notes are in each scale and where those notes are on the fretboard so you can really learn it. There's no secrets, there's no shortcuts. All of the lies that you hear on the internet of the fast track to being able to solo with a pentatonic scale, none of it's real. You have to learn where these patterns are, and you use the shapes first as a stepping stone. So the next step to really memorizing these pentatonic scales even further is being able to play them across the fretboard. And again, we hear on the internet over and over and over again, break out of the box. Well, this is the real way to break out of the box, which is to connect the pentatonic scales horizontally across the neck. So let's use the same tools that we've already built in the previous parts of this, which is, this is A, this is C, right? So that's where the next note is going to be. And then from there, the next pattern is going to be here. Next pattern is going to be here. We can use this to help you to go across the fretboard. I have this exact exercise on my site. You can do this with every string. Now, I'm not so much thinking about the notes here. Really what I'm thinking about is where the patterns fall. And I'm connecting those. Now I got it at the point where I know where the notes are. I can think E, G, G, A, C, C, D, E, or D, E, and then E to G, and then backwards. Harder to say it backwards while you're playing. But it's G, E, E, D, D, C, C, A, G, and then G, E. 3rd string. Second string. There's the root. Now, once you can do this with one string going across this way, then you do it in groupings of 2 strings. This actually really helps you to see the shapes. So if we do 5 sets of 2 strings, that's the 6th and the 5th string. Here's the 4th, or the 5th and the 4th string. And then here's the 4th and 3rd string. And then 3rd and 2nd string. This one's harder because when you're crossing these 2 strings, the 2nd string is a half step up from the rest of the guitar, so there's always a shift in there. However we do that with the fingering, I always just try to use the patterns that I would do if I was playing the pattern across the fretboard. Which is also another tool. You could do 3 strings. Almost messed that up. You think you really know your pentatonics patterns until you start breaking them up like this. This really helps you to put this together. I have these exercises on my site. You should practice along with. The third part of this is looking at the fretboard diagonally. This is a really awesome way to use pentatonic scales for when you're soloing. For example, keeping it in A minor, if I start here and I go and then shift, so that's just literally. So in this case, I'm starting on G, playing A, going to C, then sliding up. D, E, G, A, C, sliding up, E, little shift right here to this G, A, C, D, and then E. This is a really cool soloing pattern because you get the same notes just repeating. But those shifts are really natural for coming up with licks. But of course you could do this from any note. That's starting from G, any note in the scale of course, but this starting from A, we could go A, C, D, E, G, A, C, D, G, C, D, E, G, A, C, D, E, G, A. Also really cool. And then starting from C, same idea. Or use that E there. What's cool about that pattern is you keep ending up with this slide. I'm going to start running out of notes here, but here's D. As high as we can go on this guitar. So diagonal is really the way to go here because this will really, like I said, help you with coming up with licks and helps you to get that those transitions, sorry. Going outside of the pentatonic scale when I'm playing that F right there. Or just an A minor scale doing that part. So there are 3 steps that will really help you to learn the pentatonic scale, at least starting with the key of A and then slowly starting to transition that around. And keep this in mind, if you learn these as A minor, then you can use them as C because A and C are the same thing. If you learn them as E minor, then you can use them as G major because E minor and G major are the same notes, and so on and so forth. So this really makes it a lot easier where you're not trying to learn different patterns for both minor and major keys. That's an important thing. I have a whole bunch of these exercises on my site that you can practice at 15 tempos, everything you need to help you to improve your playing. Licks, exercises, riffs, chord stuff, soloing ideas. Go check that stuff out. I'll put the links down below. Thanks so much. See you next time.